Again, thanks for joining us. This is our 107th year that we've had an annual event. We're excited to be spending some time with you and just really talking about what the current state of manufacturing is. And again, we want to hear what you're experiencing as well. So let's start out by stating the obvious. We just came out of the longest economic expansion in U.S. history, which has been followed by the largest unemployment since the Great Depression. So a significant and meaningful change over about a 6-month period, which has obviously had great impact on manufacturing and all sectors of our economy. Just can I give you a sense of it? This is the kind of economic downturn we took during the first quarter of this year. It's equivalent to the severe downturn from an economic standpoint as the Great Recession in 2009. What made it different is the significant job loss that occurred during this economic crisis versus the last one in 2009. The job loss is 10 times larger than the global financial crisis. This shows you the impact on some selected countries of Australia, Canada, Japan, Korea, Sweden, and the US, just to give you a sense of the significant and meaningful downturn due to job loss. NAM does a quarterly survey of its members and manufacturers across the country. This is from the second quarter. So you can see a significant swing in people's perceptions. So about 34% of manufacturers had a positive outlook for their company as of the second quarter of this year. This is the lowest since the first quarter of 2009. Small manufacturers have a more positive outlook on the economy and their company's outlook. The expected growth rate is down, obviously. 4.3% was the expectation, the lowest since the first quarter of 2009. Full-time employment down, no surprise there, along with capital investments. Actually, prices are about equal, about flat, and inventories being down as well. In terms of the impacts on the downturn due to COVID-19, depending on sector, you can see that manufacturing is right around 13% unemployment rate versus the leisure hospitality rate obviously took the biggest hit, almost 40%. Our unemployment rates in New York State are significantly higher. In New York City, they're over 20%, and in our community between 11 and 12%. There are other places like the Buffalo region which are higher, greater than 13%. How does it compare unemployment rates over the last through 2019 and 2020? You can see that we were hovering right around 4% this time last year, and now we're right around 12%. This is for the Syracuse MSA. In terms of jobs gained or lost, it was significant job loss, well over 40,000 job loss in the Syracuse MSA. 2,500 of those were manufacturing jobs. Clearly not the most severely hurt sector, but obviously significant damage. The Federal Reserve Bank out of Buffalo does a monthly survey. This is the most recent survey. It shows you actually an uptick in the general business conditions as reported by manufacturers in September from August, and after a severe downturn in the starting in March. New orders are actually ticking up as well, and so is shipments. So these are actually positive indicators starting to materialize in New York State and materializing in the country as well. In terms of MACNY, just to give you an update on what we're doing a whole lot of virtual events. By count, we have done, since the beginning of our current fiscal year, which starts in July, over 70 events, and we've had over close to 800 participants in these virtual events. So we're focusing on ways to help leaders and professionals and teams grow, helping you with technology changes, and helping you with your business growth within your clustered industries. we'll continue to work on, 4 areas that are the most critical areas which we serve you: our events, training, and so forth, which we call member networks; our advocacy, statewide advocacy, working through the Manufacturers Alliance, which I'm the president and CEO of as well; and workforce networks and service networks. Just to give you a sense of the events that are upcoming, you'll continue to see routine updates on what we're holding, and we'll continue to have our large events, which we call our WOW events, which are 13 of those. We'll be doing those virtually. We did have a in-person golf tournament this year. We had 20 teams sign up and join us for that event, which was a wonderful event, given the parameters and the challenges. We'll be having small group virtual events, in-person gatherings. Individual membership and learning, we'll continue to have our council events. They'll all be virtual, starting out at least this year, offering still our coaching, mentoring, and our in-person training. We are doing some in-person training, and we're doing blended training. What we know is that even though there's high unemployment, we still have significant challenges in filling the pipeline for talent. These are the things that we do starting as early as middle school to help the community, students, teachers, parents understand the opportunities in technology and manufacturing. These are ongoing, even though they're being done virtually right now. We'll continue to do those. Quite a variety of ways in which we're helping companies fill that pipeline. Our PTAC programs with the City of Syracuse School District, along with Auburn School District. We have the only pre-apprenticeship program in high school that we've launched in the City School District. We're moving forward with that during this year in a very different way. We'll be doing that virtually. STEM Hub, leadership. Our talent platform, which if you haven't had a chance to use yet, we're making that available to all members to post jobs. We got over 3,000 applicants in the talent platform. So if you're looking for opportunities to fill jobs in your organizations, please contact Lori Ferguson in working on our apprenticeship programs, certifications, and of course, working with our school board association. Our services that will be continue to provide virtually from our team, which is primarily working remotely, though we are in the office as needed in these key areas as well. So I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions that you might have. Probably the best way to do this is through the chat box. If you have any specific questions that you'd like to talk about, as you can see, we're all in a very different place after 6 months. And the economy, though, is recovering. That's all very good. And that's what we hope to continue to see. I have several different roles. One of my roles is I'm in the control room. So each of the regions has a control room. We're seeing positive results in terms of keeping our spread down, which is very important. And of course, we're also seeing a significant amount of testing over a 3 or 4 day period. Now we'll do almost 20,000 tests. And that's really actually very good for the community to do so many tests and to have so many negative results actually. So even the published spread rate is actually higher than we actually are doing because of the sheer amount of saliva tests we're now doing, literally thousands a day in that space. So I'm feeling really positive about what we're doing as a community to move forward, to keep our spread rate down, and to continue to reopen our economy. And so if you have questions on those over time too, we can certainly talk about those. Also, in terms of Regional Economic Development Council, I'm the co-chair there as well. And this time, as of now, we don't have any rounds for investment, but we may see something later in the year. Right now, we're working on our recovery plans in terms of by industry, and of course, representing manufacturers there and technology companies, which have been open for the most part throughout the pandemic successfully. So that's all very positive. So one of the things we wanted to do during this is to have all of you talk to each other about what's going on in your businesses. And we're going to have Stephanie put all of you into breakout rooms, and then in 15 minutes after you've had a chance to talk to each other, we'll come back and continue our conversation. Stephanie, if you'll send us off to our breakout rooms, and again, if you'll have somebody who will sort of summarize for us and we come back out, that'll help us continue our conversation. See, we're all returning, so hopefully you had a chance to select someone. We'll get some report outs, hear from all of you. Of course, we'll open up the floor as well, but kind of want to get some sense of how people are experiencing this current crisis, what's going on in their companies, what's going on in their industries. I always think it's helpful. Tim and I spent some time talking about his company, which was great. So, and what's going on in the general climate. So, Stephanie, do you know if we're all back, or those who, can you tell?
Everybody is here.
Okay. So you can unmute yourself and go ahead and jump in. If you want to get in, you can also message me in the chat box. But we'd like to hear some insights from all of you in terms of what's going on in your business. So after we spend some time talking about that, I'll do a little bit of a preview for the next session. I'll have the future of manufacturing, and I'll tell you about my special guests, which I'll plan on having join me next Thursday. But before I forget, don't forget to join the Innovator Conversation this Thursday, the Wall of Fame conversation next Tuesday, and then I'll be back at it with all of you and those who can join next Thursday. So, is there someone who would like to jump in and talk a little bit about what they're experiencing, or any comments that they had in their breakout room?
Well, this is Greg Miller from LiftTech, and
Greg.
Into the breakout late, but David railroaded me and suggested that I share what I shared with them in the breakout room.
Awesome.
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead.
Please.
Being in the material handling world, I just got back from a meeting out in our parent company now, that's NITCO out in Massachusetts. And one of the things that we see driving the marketplace, especially now, is traditional manufacturers having to adapt and really take advantage of the e-commerce world. More and more, even folks that make component parts are having to service folks like Amazon and all the other big e-commerce players. And to be able to play in that world, basically you have to be on top of your data. Data drives all your decisions, and it's, especially my world with forklifts, conveyors and palletizers and things like that. If you're not counting your dollars spent for every touch of that piece of equipment, you're not in the game. It is getting tighter and tighter, just like everything else. You're measuring in smaller and smaller increments every step of the way, and that's one of the big things that we saw happening during our meeting. And I'm looking for it now in my marketplace, and just I'm looking at a customer, I see that effect. I see them having to reconsider their labor and their energy and their space all the time. And you look at the bigger successful companies around the area, they're always getting pushed. If you're successful, you're always being confronted by those three major things. And it's being driven by e-commerce, I'm pretty sure.
Those are good insights. I appreciate you sharing that, because I'm witnessing a lot of similar impacts when I talk to others and to look around in the world. How much has changed the e-commerce side and driving a lot of people's business. Thanks for sharing that, Greg.
Sure.
And David was right. Did a great job. Who else would like to go?
Randy, this is Pat Morocco.
Hey, Pat.
How are you doing?
Good. Good seeing you again.
Good as you as well. So we just had first off, that was a really quick breakout. We barely got through introductions, but that was enjoyable. And we basically talked about state of the businesses, what we're experiencing. We had some services companies on the group, and then manufacturing. And from the services, there's the feeling that there's certainly a pickup in terms of coming out of the bottom from COVID. There's money on the sidelines. Banks are making money available for lending, and that the companies that are going to survive are those that can adapt to the new environment and modify their production systems, and also basically try to leverage the digital technologies, kind of speaking, from our standpoint, to advance some of the opportunities that are in front of us. So, and we also talked about, how the environment of production manufacturing is changing, that more remote. In CAD's case, I think Pete had indicated they're about 80% remote, which makes me really jealous. But yeah, so I mean, it's just the times that we're living in right now. So, but all in all, I think that companies have learned to become leaner. They had to adapt to be more competitive, but they are starting to see an uptick in some of the business activities taking place.
That's very helpful. Thanks for sharing that.
Folks at PLG, did I do okay? Anything else you'd like to add over there? Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Who else would like to jump in and share?
Randy, I can share what our group talked about. I, was fortunate to be in the group with the economic development for Onondaga County, to have Hollowick, and to have Nate from Moore's Manufacturing. And we talked about how devastating COVID was on some of our industries. I thought Nate made a great statement when he said, if you were a manufacturer of toilet paper, you've got it made. But the rest of us had to really, kind of find our niche, get in a different lane, and really start to adapt. And e-commerce was a big way that Moore's Manufacturing has been pivoting. And for Hollowick, it was really finding a new client, moving out of something that was purely commercial into something that could be sold on the commercial market in homes. And as I was listening, I think sometimes all of you that are manufacturers on this call today, you don't take credit for being as resilient as you are. And that, things that were as bad as they were, I look at all of you and I think you truly are really the beacons for how we as Americans will come out of COVID. You're going to show us the way, because you did change and you adapted, and you really are setting an example for other organizations. So I told them, I will tell you, I always feel very, very grateful to be part of an organization, and that includes all of you as members who are providing solutions to the problems that we've all seen. So thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Martha. Well said. Others who'd like to comment? Tim, do you want to chime in and talk a little bit about what you and I talked about?
So our business is tied to infrastructure. So anything that's underground, we build what goes on top to cover it up. So you might know us for manhole frames and covers, drainage grates, access hatches, things like that. Fortunately, we draw on a big area out here in Phoenix. So we supply to the eastern half of the United States, and then we also supply to Canada and some to Australia. So EJ's got a big footprint and globally. But what that did is, areas that weren't affected early, such as in Texas, we have huge orders that go down to the Houston area, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, places like that weren't affected. So we had a lot of demand, even though COVID had been going on. So we were fortunate to have plenty of work to go through this. The big challenge was obviously adapting to all the requirements to keep people safe. So, we implemented a whole bunch of changes to keep our workers safe, including working remotely. So, being able to flex to having a significant number of your key people working from home was a huge effort, but it went fairly seamlessly for us, and we still have a significant number working from home. So we've gone the conservative route to continue to have a tight ship here to keep people safe. And where we're frustrated is the different funding that should be easy for our politicians to agree on, like the transportation funding. You know, you talk to any of the Democrats, Republicans, they'll say, you know, we all agree we've got to get infrastructure spending passed. That's one way that the economy can get revived with those types of jobs. But they can't seem to even agree on discussing that and coming to terms with funding for that. So what we're concerned with is now the different funding to local municipalities, cities, you know, the state here, of course, the budget's a disaster. They're going to cut that type of funding. So you'll see the roads and bridges aren't going to be reconstructed possibly next year, or a significantly reduced rate in order to close the budget gap. So that's where we will have a big impact, and you'll see it have an impact on companies like CNS. And so we work with the specifiers, and so we see what's in the pipeline, and they're all kind of worried about the lack of work that they see in that pipeline. So we may see, you know, early on we had plenty of work. We may see now at the end here of the cycle of all this that things are slowing down. So we're a little concerned about what lies ahead, but again, thankfully we draw on a big area, so we're not totally dependent on New York work, although we do a significant amount of work for New York State too. So
Thanks. Would anyone else from any of the other groups like to get in? Even if someone from your group already spoke, if you'd like to talk, that's fine too, in terms of, you know, what's going on from your perspective. Okay, feel free to jump in if you'd like to. I'm going to just share a little bit about the future of manufacturing, in order to give you sort of a little bit of a sense of what we'll be talking about next time when we get together. Bear with me as I pull it up. So next time I'm actually going to have a guest who will talk about reshoring. Harry Mosier, if you know Harry, he's been actively engaged in helping companies for quite some time now reshore and really calculate and quantify how to reshore at the company level. He's working with several different states, and we'll be actually working with New York State through the MEP network. Mackie will be involved with that through our alliance partners as well. You know, what's good is that a lot of the trends have been positive for a few years now. Actually, the labor costs have continued to improve vis-a-vis the U.S. versus the major countries that we're now and have been for some time competing with China's costs dramatically increasing in terms of the unit labor costs. And then on top of that, there are lots of other significant and strategic advantages that have only gotten stronger in terms of understanding the total cost of ownership. Everything from higher productivity to a more skilled workforce, of course, innovation in R&D, and really shortening those supply chains, which we're really starting to see at the New York State level as well. Shortening of supply chain desired, both at the company level and now the U.S. is looking for ways to incentivize. We're hoping to see this in a much stronger trend. So we'll be talking about this particular effect, reshoring, as well as other impacts having to do with the future trends for manufacturing. And we'll be talking about that next Thursday. I hope you get a chance to join us then. So I don't know if anyone has any closing comments. We'd be more than willing to let you jump in. We'll end a few minutes early. I'm sure everyone could use a few extra minutes in your day. If you're busy like the rest of us, an extra few found minutes is helpful. I often find myself needing just to leave the Zoom meeting so I can get to my next one. Luckily I don't have one right after this. But I do want to thank our sponsors, VIP Structures as the presenting sponsor for the annual celebration. We have other sponsors, but we really want to thank everyone for helping us and for supporting MACNY as an organization through this time as well. We're here for you, and we know we do it together with you. Looking forward to seeing all of you again at the future events. This should be some wonderful events, and really appreciate all that you're doing for our community and working so closely with us. These are difficult times, but it's so much easier to do it with each other than to try to do it on our own. So with that, unless someone has a final comment, I want to thank you all for coming and have yourself a wonderful evening. We look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thanks, Randy. Take care.
You bet. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Randy.
You bet.
Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Good seeing you all.
Thank you, Randy.
You bet. Take care.